Hey, True Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Yesterday, January 14th, 2017, it was reported that SpaceX, the private rocket company funded by Elon Musk, it's being reported that they had a perfect launch and landing. They're trying to launch these rockets that can also re land. So, if you've seen my work on SpaceX and their launches of the past, the successful ones, the explosions, I've showed how they are all synced up with Elon Musk himself, the owner of the company SpaceX. And the exact same thing is true of Jeff Bezos and his private rocket company, Blue Origin. I have videos on SpaceX launches as well as Blue Origin. Let's read this real quick, and then I will show you how this is another launch by the numbers, just as all the ones before it have been. There's a ritual and numbers going on here. CNN's reporting on the launch yesterday says SpaceX returned to flight Saturday after a 4.5-month hiatus. The private space exploration company headed by Tesla CEO Elon Musk launched a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California at 9:54 a.m. Pacific time, taking 10 satellites into space for voice and data company Iridium. It marked the company's first launch since a Falcon 9 rocket exploded at Cape Canaveral, Florida in September, and that happened on September 1st, the first day of the 9th month on our Gregorian calendar. A Falcon 9, first day of the 9th month. Notice the launch time yesterday, 9:54 a.m. 54 in numerology is 5 plus 4 is 9. So 9, 9, Falcon 9. The numbers are always important. It marked the company's first launch since a Falcon 9 rocket exploded at Cape Canaveral, Florida in September. And again, that was September 1st. The launch's success Saturday was made even sweeter by a smooth return landing for the Falcon 9 rocket's first stage booster. It safely returned from space and glided to a landing on a seafaring platform known as a drone ship. SpaceX has been attempting to perfect the rocket landing, along with rivals such as Blue Origin from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Because rockets are worth tens of millions of dollars and they have historically been discarded after launch, mastering the landing is key to making space travel more affordable. So that's the reason they want to get the landing. That's the narrative. They want to be able to save these tens of millions of dollars. Instead of destroy them in the landing, reuse them. So it's a logical idea. But the question is, are these rocket launches even really happening? Or is it all part of a continuous grand deception? Saturday's launch marks the 7th time SpaceX has successfully landed a rocket. 7 in numerology representing completion. So I'll link this post if you want to read the whole article. Let's just jump to right here. Elon Musk, he was born Elon Reeve Musk, June 28th, 1971. He'll turn 46 later this year. From the launch to his upcoming 46th birthday is 165 days. And the reason that's so interesting is because his name in Gematria, Elon Reeve Musk, sums to 165. Another important name that sums to 165 is Scottish Rite, as in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which is what has always controlled NASA, which is our government agency, taxpayer funded, that's responsible supposedly for space travel. NASA, founded by Freemasons of the Scottish Rite. Interesting how Elon Reeve Musk has the same name gematria as Scottish Rite. Yesterday's launch, it took place in California. Typically they're in Florida at Cape Canaveral or Kennedy. Yesterday's launch in California on the opposite coast at Vandenberg Air Force Base. The address of Vandenberg gave me a kick, 747. Vandenberg in gematria sums to 47. Remember, 74. The word Masonic is 74. Very special number to the Freemasons, 74. As is 47, its reflection. The Freemasons have Euclid's 47th problem about how to establish foundation. The word foundation's 47. Framework, 47. Authority, 47. In this case, Vandenberg, 47. Vandenberg Air Force Base also sums to 104, like 10-4. Like the date of establishment for this nation, 7-4, July 4th, a date that can be written 7/4 or 4/7, date with 104 numerology. The last launch, the unsuccessful launch, it was September 1st, 2016. It was exactly 66 days after Elon Musk's birthday. The launch was at Cape Canaveral. Cape Canaveral has gematria of 48, 66, and 102. This unsuccessful launch at Cape Canaveral, 66 days after the birthday. The other year, Elon Musk, on his birthday, had one of his rockets explode as well. It was his 44th birthday where the rocket exploded. The launch for SpaceX, the word space alone equals 44. Here were the headlines that day. Front page news, SpaceX rocket explodes. That was a date with 46 numerology as well as 19. The word chaos equals 19. The Freemasons believe in order out of chaos. You know, story of chaos, multi-million-dollar rocket exploding. To me, it's all meant to cause confusion. You know, here we are in this nation where we've been told that NASA's been able to launch rockets successfully for decades, getting into space. I mean, how could it be in the 2000s we're having so much difficulty? These rockets exploding regularly on the launch pad. I mean, how many stories like that have there been the last few years? One explodes, the next time it's perfect with the perfect landing. I mean, to me, it's all just part of what they want. The confusion, people not knowing what to think. You know, 10 years ago, they were saying private space travel's just around the corner. Pretty soon, people will be able to pay $100,000 and take a flight through space. A decade later, we don't seem any closer, you know? So my favorite SpaceX story that I've covered today, the landings, the launches, the landings, space off, pulls off, rocket landing. I believe that this was the first one. This was on December 21st, 2015, 12/21, a date with 68 numerology. SpaceX in gematria is 68. Again, space is 44. X is the 24th letter. 44 plus 24, 68. In 1968, the Apollo 8 mission took off on December 21st. That was the mission that figured out how to supposedly land the vehicle on the moon. It was a test run getting to that point. So it had to do with landing as well in 1968, Apollo 8. They coded their headline, SpaceX pulls off rocket landing, with gematria of 119, a number that relates to Elon Musk, who has named his company after Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, 119, like master plan, like all-seeing eye, like Star of David. They used to say Elon Musk was worth $11.9 billion. Forbes had an article on him in 2015 saying he was worth that much. You know, reporting by the numbers. Real quick, I want to point out something about Vandenberg Air Force Base. The elevation there is 369 feet, reportedly. Look up the quote about Nikola Tesla in 369. I have a video from this past summer showing how one of the earthquakes in Italy, remember Italy got rocked by all those big earthquakes? I showed how one of those earthquakes was no doubt a major tribute to Elon Musk in 369. Or not Elon Musk, Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla supposedly had the technology to create earthquakes. Check that video out I made this summer. One of the more interesting videos I've made. So anyhow, this was a major tribute to 1968, this SpaceX landing on the date with 68 numerology. The 1968 Apollo 8 mission, one of the most memorable things about that mission was on Christmas Eve, they were supposedly in orbit. On Christmas Eve, they supposedly read from the book of Genesis. Christmas Eve 1968. As one of the most turbulent, tragic years in American history, that was the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. that year, the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. Today's January 15th, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Anyway, 1968, major year. That's the year 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began in New York. George W. Bush graduated from Yale in Skull and Bones as a bonesman. Masonic order. Bonesman equals 33. Masonry 33. Secrecy 33. 33 years later, George W. Bush, the bonesman, would become president of the United States. Same year as 911, which happened 33 years after construction began. False flag equals 33. Anyway, 68 was a turbulent year, tragic year, and American history drew to a close. Millions around the world were watching and listening as the Apollo 8 astronauts, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, became the first humans to orbit another world. Supposedly they orbited the moon. As their command module floated above the lunar surface, the astronauts beamed back images of the moon and Earth and took turns reading from the book of Genesis, closing with a wish for everyone on the good Earth. They didn't use that phrase, on the good Earth, by accident. On the good Earth equals 155, like Christianity, reading from the Bible. The word science in Jewish gematria is 155. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 155. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy jokes that 42 is the meaning of life. 42, very relevant to NASA, Freemasonry, space travel, the Bible, the first printed Bibles, 42-line Bibles, 42 generations to Jesus. New Testament equals 42, like Freemason, like history, like knowledge, like astrology. So anyway, Freemasonry, they do things by the numbers, coding numbers into words. No doubt that's why they closed out with on the good Earth. The small way, on the good Earth equals 74. Very important number to the history of this nation. Again, the Freemasons, on the good Earth, 74. Independence Day, 74. Holiday, Masonic, Jewish cult. English, gematria, alphabetic order. With regards to Christianity, Jesus, cross, gospel, Messiah, Muhammad, Yeshua, Joshua, Lucifer, and more. The English translation of Jesus is Joshua. Joshua equals 74. So look at this. The date, December 24th, 1968, when they did this, reading from the book of Genesis, it was a date with 123 numerology. Christmas Eve. Outer space equals 123. Conspiracy equals 123. It was also a date with 33 numerology. They're reading from Genesis. Genesis 33, Big Bang 33, Secrecy 33, Masonry 33, Teacher, Believe. With regards to Big Bang, if you do Big Bang with the alphabetic order, Big Bang equals 42. Number of the Freemasons. Number very important to the Bible. Think about Genesis and Big Bang. The Christian telling of the creation of the earth, the scientific telling. What a lot of people don't realize is there probably both false tellings by the Freemasons who want people divided and fighting over lies and nonsense that they've given them. You know, in this world, there's this divide between science and spirituality, when in reality, they should be together. You know, why can't they be together? Why can't you try to understand the world through a scientific and spiritual lens? Everyone can. It's just that you're taught and programmed to think that it needs to be this or that, this or that. So many people are this or that mindset. It can only be this thing or that thing, as if there's no other options, as if it can't be both things, you know? If you're a this or that person, realize that you are 100% programmed. You're like a puppet on strings. The Apollo 8 mission, it also took off on 12/21, 12 plus 21, 33. 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 12 There's a form of gematria where you don't count the vowels. No A, E, I, O, U. If you do that to NASA, if you get rid of the A's, you're left with N and S. N's the 14th letter. S is the 19th. N plus S equals 33, number of Freemason obsession. If you do NASA in free Francis Bacon gematria, NASA equals 139, like the word Freemasonry. Again, NASA, established by Freemasons. Same with the rest of our government. Our entire government is established by Freemasons. So when they say NASA's run by Freemasons, I mean, who else would it be run by, really? It's who's always run the government. Freemasons. The word moon has gematria 57, just like Apollo 8. This was the mission to set up the moon landing. Scottish Rite the small way 57, again, Scottish Rite, running Freemasonry. Yeah, True Seeker. There's a lot I could go on about. NASA established in 58, Science 58, Freemasonry 58, Secret Society 58, Annuit Coeptus 58, Star 58. Outer Space, don't want to forget that one. Outer Space, the small wave 42, you know, like Big Bang, like Freemason. There's just so much. I mean, you guys want to know more about this? Go through my blog, go through my video channel, hundreds of blog posts, tens of videos. Plus, I already have a video on this. You can go find my older video where I go through all of this inch by inch. But I'm just trying to remind you guys. The pilot episode of The Twilight Zone came out November 24th, 1958. November 24th, 11 plus 24 is 35. NASA, if you count the A's, equals 35. NASA established in 58. The first Twilight Zone episode in 58. The first pilot episode is about putting a man on the moon. Came out in 58. Rod Serling equals 58. Like Freemasonry, like Secret Society, like science. I guess I didn't put it up here, but the Twilight Zone equals 84, like United States of America. The name Serling using the alphabetic order is 84, the writer of the Twilight Zone. The word Jesuit's also 84. So anyway, the point is, NASA, the Freemasons, the people who control the media, who control the narrative about space as we know it, who control the narrative about pretty much everything in this world as we know it, they lie to us by the numbers. And because we know we're lied to, well, because some of us know we're lied to in the truth community, we're now jumping to conclusions that aren't based in any fact or reason, such as the flat earth. A lot of people are saying because NASA lies, that's proof the earth is flat. Which doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to that statement. There's no reason to that statement. Almost everyone who makes that statement thinks it's NASA that declared the Earth to be spherical. The Earth being spherical is knowledge that dates back to the ancients. There's proof that the people who built the pyramids thousands of years ago thought the Earth was spherical. You know, NASA was established in 1958. The pyramids were built thousands of years ago. So a spherical Earth is old world knowledge. What NASA does is maintains the narrative that the Earth is a sphere, and why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? The evidence of this world is that the Earth is a sphere. From Earth, we can see the sun and the moon, and those objects are spherical, and they orbit. The flat earth people, they want to say that the earth's flat and a spherical sun and moon orbit the earth, but they don't know what causes the orbit. I mean, just think about that. Why would God make, spherical objects in the sky, but then not make a spherical earth? And what's so ungodly about a spherical earth? This is the other thing that people are saying. NASA lies because they don't want people to know the truth of God's flat earth. We'll get more to the flat earth in a moment, but I mean, What's the assumption based on that God couldn't create a spherical Earth? You know, it's God. God can do whatever God wants. Let's keep on the NASA lies by the numbers for a moment. The moon landing. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. The name Armstrong in gematria sums to 44, like space. The moon landing came in the time of Cancer in 1969, July 20th. Cancer equals 44, and Cancer in astrology is ruled by the moon. So, of course, a moon landing in the time of Cancer, the astrological symbol for Cancer is 69. The moon landing in 1969. You know? Neil Armstrong equals 66, like manifest destiny, like empire. Two major empires in the world in a space race, the US, Russia. Both of their space races by the numbers. Russia and the US do everything by the same numbers because they're under the same Freemasonic leadership. Space programs, nuclear programs, and a whole lot more. You know, I have a really intelligent caller on my weekly radio show. He calls in and he is convinced that the moon landing is real, that we really did it. And I don't know, honestly. I don't know if we really did the moon landing. But here's something to think about. Is it possible that the US was able to do the moon landing and at the same time they faked the footage of the moon landing? I've heard people say that this is really what happened before, that the US is capable of getting into orbit, going to the moon, landing, that they've done it, but they had to fake the moon landing because there's no way to get the footage back from the moon to the Earth to prove it. And that's interesting. You know, that actually would make sense to me. Think about how hard it is to, you know, just create signal in certain places on this Earth. Phone signal, radio signal, television signal. How do you get the signal back from a distant object in space back to Earth? You know? I could see that that's possible, that we really have the technology to get there, but we don't have the way to send back the proof. So there's the incentive to fake it. At the same time, understand, I'm not claiming that I know what's going on. How can I know as a mortal man living on Earth if our government's really getting up out of orbit, landing on the moon? I can't know, and I have no reason to trust this government as much as they do lie, and as easy as it is to prove their lies. But at the same time, I recognize that the people who govern over us, they have a lot of technology. They're very sophisticated. They're way ahead of us. You know, all the technology that we use in this world that we take for granted, it's very complicated, and none of us have any idea how to recreate it. None of us can recreate a computer from scratch. None of us can recreate a TV, a phone, let alone a smartphone. You know, we have all this advanced technology around us. Advanced technology is a real thing. Advanced flight is a real thing. Look at the fighter jets in the sky, the maneuvers they can do. It's mind-blowing. You know, NASA came out of the advanced research for flight. At first it was just all about military flight, then it evolved into NASA and space. But there's things to think about, you know? The reasons that they're lying about certain things. Why are they lying? Why are they lying if they really can't get out of orbit and get into space? Why lie about that? Well, you know, it shows superiority, you know? It shows that you have this great capability that maybe you really don't have. So think about that. If they can't get out of orbit, if they never really have gone to the moon, and they just want to maintain that lie, over time they have to do maintenance for the lie. They have to keep creating more and more fake stories to validate the lie of the past. That's the problem with lying. Once you lie, you have to maintain the lie. And here we are in 2017, nearly 50 years from the supposed moon landing, and none of us really know what the truth is because we've been lied to so many times. You know? So many people in this flat earth community, they say, the only reason to lie is so that people don't know the truth shape of the earth, it's flat. Which is just like a not thinking statement. I mean, there's a million different reasons they could be lying. To maintain the lie of the past. It doesn't have to be that they're lying because the shape of the earth's flat. You know, and if the earth is flat and not really a sphere, I mean, what is the advantage of maintaining that lie? For all of you who say it's to keep people away from spirituality. That doesn't make any sense to me. It wouldn't make me any more spiritual if I found out that the earth is flat, you know? Either way, whatever we're living in, it seems clear to me that something greater created it. God, whatever word you want to use. This whole thing about the earth has to be flat for of God to have created it, that's just a belief that some of you have. And this whole flat earth theory is all based in belief because there's no evidence that the earth's flat. None. There's no logical model for a flat earth. And it's really illogical to think that that secret could be maintained by anyone. That there's an ice wall surrounding the entire earth that's never been documented in the age of flight and all the ships at sea, all the crabbing boats that go out. You know, it's just, the flat earth community is a non-thinking, belief-based community that just arrives at false assumptions that don't even make sense. If you come to my blog, there's a lot of posts on SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, hundreds altogether. And just since we're talking about space and being lied to, a lot of people in this flat earth community, they say that the North Star is proof that we are on a flat earth that does not move. Just the moon and sun move around us and the stars move around us. But they say that the North Star, it always holding that position, is proof the earth is flat. And this isn't true. It's not true. It's not proof that the earth is flat. The scientific explanation for the North Star is that it's so far away, it's so distant compared to pretty much everything else you see, that it doesn't seem to move. And the way to quickly understand this is, imagine that you're standing in front of a tree. There's just a tree standing in front of you. It could be anything. If you take one step to the right, the tree is no longer standing in front of you. The tree has moved. However, if you go way back, and the tree looks like it's standing in front of you, and you move a step to the right, you're not even going to be able to tell that, you know, the tree has moved relative to you because you're so far away from the tree now, and when you take that step to the right, it still looks like the tree's right in front of you. You know, before you were right next to it, you stepped to the right, and now the tree wasn't in front of you. You see what I'm saying? Could be any object. I'm just using a tree. The thing about the North Star is that it's so far away that no matter how we move, it just seems like it's in that same position. Here's what science says, and I'm going to show you here in a second what's very suspicious about this distance, and I'll elaborate on it, but just understand this. The diameter of Earth's orbit is 300 million kilometers. That's what they tell us the total orbit is of the sun. So if you draw that circle, the orbit that we make of the sun, the diameter is the distance across that circle, which is 300 million kilometers. Remember geometry? Half of the diameter is the radius, which would be 150 million kilometers. Then it says the distance of Polaris, which is the North Star, is around 3.6 quadrillion kilometers, or 2.4 quadrillion miles. So look at how massive that number is. Huge, huge. Compared to the distance that we orbit, the distance of the North Star is way, way further. So it's that same example of taking a step to the right and the trees seeming not to move. This North Star and how much the Earth moves is the same thing. The Earth, the total distance it moves, the diameter of its orbit, is almost nothing next to the comparison of how far away this star reportedly is. And for all I know, the North Star really is way out there, like they said, a special star in the sky, you know, beaming bright, very visible. This is the explanation. And for all of you flat earthers, the stars tell us definitively that the earth is not flat. It's why when you're in the northern hemisphere, you see different stars than when you're in the southern hemisphere, and the stars spin in an opposite direction depending on what hemisphere you're in. That could only happen on a spherical earth. And it does happen. It's been documented so many times. That's why I just feel that the flat earth community, they just want to believe that the earth is flat. They don't care about any evidence that shows that the earth isn't flat. They don't care about the logical fallacy that nobody's ever documented this ice wall surrounding the earth. Some of them go, yeah, they have. Here's some pictures from Antarctica. Do you guys understand that Antarctica doesn't go around the entire earth? It's a continent, people have traveled all the way across it. It has a start and end. It doesn't circle the whole earth. Yeah, something's going on up in Antarctica. They got some military technology. They got something up there they're hiding from the masses. No doubt about that. That doesn't mean the earth is flat. But anyway, this is the logical explanation of why the North Star does not move in the sky, because it's too far away. Now, let me show you what's interesting when you look at the distances given to us. And understand that if you read, the distances aren't even exactly agreed upon, depending on where you read. But look, they say that the North Star is 433 light years away, or 133 parsecs, another measurement. And with regards to the 133 parsecs, North Star in gematria equals 133. That's what this is about, the North Star. And 433 stands out for the light years because 433, it has the 33 right in it, right? Both of the measurements do. But 433 is the 84th prime number. Jesuit equals 84. In past videos, I've talked about the history of the Catholic Church, astronomy, our understanding of the world, where we are in it. Interesting how those numbers connect. So here's what I think you should consider. If you look at the evidence for this world, the evidence says that the earth is spherical. We see spheres in the sky from the moon and the sun. There's no evidence of any walls surrounding us. The world is half in dark, half in night. Only seemingly possible on a spherical earth. The way the sun sets, the way the stars rotate, the opposite hemispheres. People in the flat earth community want to say Corey Ellis effect isn't real. How isn't it real? Storms in the north and storms in the south spin in opposite directions. When you flush a toilet bowl in the north, it spins in an opposite direction in the south. And all of you who watch these flat earth videos and say that isn't true, it's because you're watching disingenuous information. You can engineer a toilet bowl in either hemisphere to make it spin either way. Sure, engineering can overcome it, but naturally, you take the same toilet bowl in the north and the same toilet bowl in the south, and you flush, it's going to spin in opposite directions. Just like how the storms spin in opposite directions. Just like how the stars spin in opposite directions. These things are not possible on a flat earth. And all of these things happen on earth, which should mean that the flat earth is not possible. And it isn't. The flat earth was brought to this community to discredit people, to divide people, to confuse people, to distract people. The point is, we are being lied to. But don't say because we're being lied to, I'm just going to jump into this other lie being presented to me that I like more. This lie aligns more nicely with the way I see the world. All these flat earth arguments are so disingenuous. Do you feel like when you're looking up at the sky that you're spinning around rapidly? You guys, the earth is huge and it does a rotation every 24 hours. They have things in museums that track the orbit of the earth. I can't think what the name of that tool is, but the tool, which just looks like it's there on the floor, you're staring there at the flat floor of the museum. This tool, I can't think what it's called. You can look it up, it exists. It's existed for hundreds of years. The tool shows that the earth orbits because over the course of the day, the instrument on there will do a full rotation with the earth. But anyway, the thing is, the earth is spinning one rotation a day. These flat earthers, when you listen, they make it sound like the earth's spinning like a top, nonstop all day. It's making a rotation each day, traveling a distance around the sun. You're not going to feel the spin of the earth. You've lived on this earth your whole life. Your body's adjusted. This is where we live. People say, well, why don't you feel like you're upside down depending on where you're... You guys, just all of these questions are asking from a short-sighted point of view. You know, you always feel right side up. Your feet are to the ground. This is your human perspective. If you've been duped by the flat earth theory, you really need to start thinking more deeply, more clearly. Just because the horizon looks flat from where you stand, from your relatively small vantage point, that doesn't mean the Earth's flat. Look how the sun comes down and just disappears behind the horizon very quickly. You know? It doesn't disappear off in the distance like a small dot. It goes behind the horizon because the Earth's a sphere. Very clear. So we covered enough, Truth Seeker, you know. They could be lying to us about the distances because they don't really know how to gather them themselves. You know, the evidence is that the Earth is spherical. There's reasons that the North Star is in the sky, appearing as it does over time. Science has to create explanations. And I think what's going on is the authorities in science, if they can't figure it out definitively, I think they just create a reason by the numbers that essentially no mortal man can debunk. And I think that's what they've done with space. It's an easy topic to do just that. You know? What you can't prove, fake it. And again, that's the reason to also, if NASA truly is faking imagery from space, I mean, that's the reason to fake it. Because you have to maintain the lie that you've gotten out of orbit, you've been into space. I don't have all the answers, Truth Seeker. That's why I stay focused on the things that I can prove, that do matter, such as how NASA, SpaceX, Blue Origin, all these rocket launches are being manufactured by the numbers. You can show that something's up that way. That doesn't mean the Earth's flat, though. It just means they might not be able to truly get out of Earth's orbit. Also, understand this. You live in a world where media needs to create news every day. They need to give you the latest, you know, bright, shiny distraction to keep your mind occupied. So you don't focus on the things you should be focusing on. Like how you've been made into a slave to grind and generate revenue for a government that doesn't really care about you. You know, continuously living in false fear, manufactured. So there it is, Truth Seeker. Until next time.